All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to kick things off. Any questions that you have going through the session today, please leave them in the Q&A at the bottom. You can leave them in chat as well, but we may not be able to get to them all if we miss them, if chat's moving too quickly. And when you're chatting, make sure you change that drop down to everyone. Otherwise, you're just going to be chatting to David and I. For those of you I haven't said hi to before, hi, I'm Andy. I lead ecosystem at Glide, and I am so thrilled that we're able to put this session together. Thank you to our entire Glide community. This wouldn't be possible. There'd be no reason for us to do these events without you. So thank you so much to all of our users, ambassadors, experts. We wouldn't be here without you. If you have any specific feature requests as we go through this session, please drop them over in the forum. We're planning out our sessions for next year. We would love to do some deep dives on your wish lists. But for now, any specific feature requests you got, just drop them over in the forum. And yes, I see some questions about whether this session will be recorded. Yes, it will be. We'll send a link out within the next week or so. So with all that said, I'm going to be hanging out in the chat, moderating. I'm going to hand it over to David, our co-founder and CEO. And see you in the chat.
Thanks, Andy. Hey, everyone. I'm so glad we could get together towards the end of the year to reflect a little bit on how far Glide has come since its humble beginnings and some of the great things we accomplished last year. And I'm sure the reason why you're here is to get a sneak peek at some of the exciting new things we're going to do next year. I don't want to give anything away yet, but I can say next year is going to be a year unlike any other at Glide. And it's just going, the powers of Glide are going to grow in ways that you probably can't even predict right now at the top of this presentation. So if you make your list of what you think we're going to be focusing on next year, I would be pretty surprised if the things that we're actually going to do are on your list. So I'm excited to surprise you. Let's just take a little look at a blast from Glide's past.
Hello, I'm David. This is Jason, Mark, and Antonio. We're the founders of Glide. Glide creates apps from spreadsheets. This allows people to take the spreadsheets they already have and turn them into amazing apps for their customers and employees without writing any code. Using the app updates the spreadsheet and vice versa. It's magic. This is important because of a phenomenon we call dark apps. A dark app is an internal app created by a business that never goes to an app store. We've seen companies create tens or hundreds of dark apps at enormous expense, and enterprises will spend $7.1 billion on dark apps in 2021. But demand is much greater than supply because of the scarcity of mobile knowledge. We think the opportunity is much greater than this, though. There are 1 billion spreadsheet users, and our insight is that spreadsheet skills are sufficient for creating the kind of apps that businesses need most. This becomes an undiscovered continent of software developers. Developers created apps reaching 33,000 users. For example, the Jacksonville Jaguars are using Glide apps for scouting in the NFL draft. Bounty Fresh created an app to track the growth of millions of chickens, and there's even a high-end sports car marketplace.
So that was the original presentation that we made when Glide was 3 months old about our vision for the company and why we were creating Glide. And I'll get into this quote on screen in a moment, but I just wanted to say that the founders of Glide had seen companies try to make their own internal apps and fail in so many ways. They would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, months of time, if not years. And the result was almost always uninspiring software that employees hated, honestly. And we really wanted to create a set of developer tools that would let anyone create beautiful software, primarily focused at internal use for business, and with especially looking at the mobile use cases. And we wanted the software to be easy and fun to use by anyone and not just restricted to traditional software developers. So that's always been the DNA of Glide. And I also wanted to share this quote that I found from the CEO of Stripe. One of the strange facts about the world is how hard it is for organizations to build good software. They can reliably turn capital into a nice headquarters, a fleet of cars, or an ad campaign. but for whatever reason, they can't turn capital into good software. We spend a shocking percentage of our lives now using software. Many of our waking hours are spent interacting with devices and software, and we want that software to be great. We want it to be smooth and fast and secure and contemporary. So again, the CEO of Stripe is pointing out that there's something like extra hard about getting software right. So that's what we're really focused on Glide, is making it just really easy to create great software by default. So that's the intro, that's the context, that's a little bit of nostalgia from Glide's early days. Today, we're going to look at some milestones from last year, or this year rather. We're going to look at some customer examples so you can see how Glide is growing with customers. And then, drum roll, what you're all here to talk about, or to hear about rather, is a look ahead at what's in store from Glide for next year. So highlights from last year. This tiny little grid of faces, this was the entire company about this time last year. In fact, maybe even a little bit smaller this time last year. But in January, we were a small team. And one of the exciting things we were able to do this year was grow our team. Added engineers, added designers, and most importantly, we added a marketing team to help tell you about the great things we're building and to communicate Glide's message far and wide. And a major accomplishment for our company over the last year has been really sort of growing up the messaging around Glide and clarifying Glide's business use. You could see in our early pitch that we always had our eyes set on internal use of Glide at businesses, but we were always sending mixed messages with our sort of friendly and broad appeal. If you look at the first version of Glide's website, it was like anyone can turn any spreadsheet into any app. It wasn't really clear who that was for. But with our focus over the last year on growing businesses and some of the great examples that you can find on our website, we're really proud of our increased customer focus and clarifying how Glide can benefit businesses. So I'll just tell you quickly about a couple of customers. You can find more about them on our customers page. But this is just sort of a straightforward use of their vendors, and they're calling people for instructions and manuals about installing equipment. It's like, not only is that inefficient, it's very dangerous. So they built a Glide app that incorporates all the equipment they install into one app. All the manuals and details are right there. Frequently asked questions, there's a forum. These field technicians can quickly look up contacts and call them if they need help on site, and they can also request features in the app. And I think this was used by over 300 field technicians in the first year. It caught the eye of executives at the company who were really impressed that they had something so sophisticated as a custom piece of software for these technicians in place. And the people who created this app at Lone Star have created over 50 apps. So we love seeing use cases like this. It's just making a job that you don't think about every day as a job benefiting from great custom software. Making the lives of these technicians safer and making their job more enjoyable. So Westland Real Estate Group is another customer with a case study on our website. They manage 12,000 rental properties in a fleet of nearly 20 apps that they've built on Glide. And most notably, they're an early adopter of our newest data source, BigQuery. And some of their apps query millions of records. So it's an incredible scale. Something as sort of deceptively simple looking at a Glide app can manage this amount of information and can give a centralized command view of a broad business with a lot of moving pieces. And then a customer whose name we can't share, but this is one of our higher scale customers. I just wanted to show sort of the breadth and scale of adoption that some of our customers have achieved this year. This is a large public company. They have 7 apps deployed in retail locations and delivery and inventory trucks with over 600 internal users per month. And for those of you who know about sort of Glide's pricing model and some of its more powerful features, this one customer just blew past 800,000 updates per month. These are new data operations where they're creating or changing data. And they're growing so fast we're excited to watch them surpass 1 million updates a month. Another major development over the last year was Glide Pages maturing into sort of 1.0 status. We introduced Glide Pages, a very minimal version of a large screen layout for Glide, at the end of last year. And over the last year, it's gotten a lot of details and a lot of feature development. Got a data grid, a Kanban board, a really sophisticated calendar view, got map components, charts, and an animation framework that makes apps built on Glide Pages really smooth with a lot of attention to detail. I'm going to talk more about the future of Pages when we move into talking about next year. We added a bunch of new data sources. So last year we had Google Sheets, the data source that we started with, and we had Glide Tables, which is our built-in data source. If you don't care where your data is stored, you can just default to the high-performance, high-scale database that we include called Glide Tables. But we also added Excel, Airtable, file import covering CSV, Excel files, and other data formats. And a few weeks ago, we introduced BigQuery support. And BigQuery is a huge step. It's a totally different type of data source that we call queryable data source. So with Excel, Airtable, and Glide Tables and Google Sheets, we refer to these as spreadsheet class data sources. They're about the size of a spreadsheet. And BigQuery is a database class data source. The difference is, you may be familiar with our spreadsheet data sources. You can have about 25,000 rows in your app before you might start to have some performance challenges. Because with the spreadsheet data sources, we load all of your data into memory, or at least all the data to which the current user is entitled by your security rules. And then we evaluate the computed columns and components in your app. But you can't do that same thing when we're talking about millions or billions of rows. You have to do a much more careful sort of partial loading of the data, pagination, and take much more care around references between data and aggregations like rollups. So we're proud to say that with BigQuery, you can scale your Glide apps practically indefinitely to billions of rows of data. And everything looks more or less the same in Glide when you construct these. You can display a list that's backed by a BigQuery query or table. You can apply filters to it. Users can search that list, navigate, see detail screens, and take actions. So this is a really big step for our most demanding customers who have very large data sets they want to incorporate into their Glide apps. And it also lays the foundation for us to add other database class data sources in the future, like Cloud SQL, MySQL, et cetera. We're not planning to do that in the coming year. We have other things that we're focusing on, but we're really excited about the data source foundation and how much it's matured in the last year. And this is the beautiful supporting graphic I should have had up while I was talking about how amazing BigQuery is. But here you can see an app with sort of a dashboard and a list of expenses and historical sales. Let's say you're building an app and every week you're creating 10,000 new rows. Maybe it's sort of tracking changes to inventory. If you're storing those in BigQuery, you'll have no problem incorporating a list of that information into the app for your users to browse. We introduced more flexible team-based pricing last year. Usually when you say you changed your pricing, your users don't get very excited. We view this as a big usability benefit, actually, because it just changed how companies think about interacting with their Glide account. Before, you had to choose whether or not to upgrade individual apps on your team, and now you just pay for the whole team. For example, on our Pro plan, this includes unlimited 25,000 row projects, or Pro apps, as we used to call them. So this was a huge unlock for our business customers, and just to make it much easier for them. As soon as they have an idea or they want to try something, they can create a new project and it has all of the business features, capabilities, and scale of all of the upgraded apps on their account without having to manage subscriptions at an app level. We improved our sharing and privacy. This is a big deal in Glide because Glide supports both public apps where anyone in the world can find your application and sign in, and private apps, and kind of a hybrid model in between where you might have an app that anyone can look at, but only people within your company can actually sign in and see an admin screen or take action, for example. This was historically a very confusing part of our experience when people would have to navigate the privacy and sign-in settings. We made these a lot simpler, a lot easier to understand. We still have a long ways to go in making it even simpler because this is such a powerful area of the product. But we also, when you publish a project, you get a link right away to try your own project, and you can send magic links and invitations to other users to add them to your app. And I mentioned before, we really improved our customer focus this year, and hopefully you can tell by visiting our marketing website. It's all about how Glide can be used by businesses. For some people, this is news. They couldn't tell that Glide was creating software for businesses, and some people might get kind of nervous when they hear this because maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to launch your new app idea on Product Hunt. We're really focused on existing businesses with problems solved by custom software, rather than someone who is an entrepreneur trying to start a net new business that's predicated on their Glide app. So we've clarified that focus, and hopefully people can have a better idea of understanding who Glide is for, and seeing examples that resemble their own business so they can understand how their business can benefit from Glide. So I'm sure I was just covering old ground for all of our community members who have joined today. You guys are watching our releases like a hawk. Robert's in our staging and test servers, finding features that we haven't even decided to release yet and sharing them on the forum. You guys are experts at what we've done in the last year. So what's coming in the year ahead? So I'll talk about our mission at the end of this presentation, but if you look in the footer of our website in the lower left corner, the marketing website, you'll find our mission, and you'll find these three evocative words: power, beauty, and magic. And we started Glide not out of frustration or loathing of how software gets created. We didn't start it out of envy because we couldn't create software and we were envious of the people who could. We started Glide out of love for creating software. And the sense of power, beauty, and magic that it gives us when you solve a problem by creating a beautiful custom piece of software. So we think about these terms when we're creating the product. Does it feel powerful? Does it feel beautiful? Does it feel magical? And that goes from the experience of building your app inside Glide, and then all the way to the experience of using it for your employees or customers. But startups are about focus. And we cannot increase all of these in equal measure and succeed. So for the year ahead, we are focusing on power. We are going to make Glide a lot more powerful in the year ahead. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to complete our transition from apps to pages. Pages is the future of our platform. And at some point, those terms, apps and pages, will be removed. And we'll probably once again just call what you build in Glide an app. Why does this increase power? Well, pages work they're responsive across mobile, web, and desktop, all within one project type. And we're going to make the mobile experience of pages rival what you've experienced in Glide apps to date. We'll probably call Glide apps Glide Classic, and it'll be available for a little while. But all of our focus is going to go on pages. And this also lets us focus on power by focusing our team just on supporting one version of the product, the Pages product. We're going to introduce 10 million row scale big Glide tables. Now, we don't know what we'll actually call them, but we're going to create a version of Glide tables built into the product. You don't have to go provision a database or use some other service. It's just going to be right there, a version of Glide tables that has 10 million row scale. So that if you're one of these customers who's creating thousands of rows a week, you don't have to manage them in a spreadsheet, export them. Spreadsheets are not built to scale past 1 million rows for sure. 100,000 will definitely break your spreadsheet, I would say. Spreadsheets of maybe 60 or 70,000 rows are possible, but pretty painful. But big Glide tables will scale to cover the use cases of our most demanding customers. So we're really excited about providing this. We're going to introduce integrations that connect your apps to the world. So today your app's built on Glide. They're connected to the world, but barely. They're connected to your spreadsheet. Okay, they're good at updating that. And you can connect to Zapier, or you can use webhooks to sort of send information out to the world or trigger actions, but they don't natively do that. And I'll show you what I mean in a few moments. And we're going to improve our action editor, and we're going to introduce automations into the action editor. So today, all of the action that happens in your app happens when users are tapping on your app. Automations are things that happen when people aren't tapping on your app. For example, one of the most common use cases is that people have asked about is every night at midnight, I'd like to clean up some of the data in my app. I want to remove the check-ins from my attendance app that are more than 30 days old, or I want to summarize some information, create a report, and send it. We want to make it just so these common things that you'd like to do asynchronously or independent of user action are just really easy to set up in the action editor. So apps to pages, just to summarize the first one, I'll talk a little bit about that. If you haven't opened Pages in a while, or you haven't tried it on your phone, you might not know that Pages make awesome mobile apps. And sorry for this awkward terminology. I'm using the word apps in lowercase to describe the software that Glide builds in general, and specifically when it's running on your phone. Apps with a capital A is our product, Glide Apps. But this, what you see here, is a Glide page, same one running on a laptop and running on a mobile device. And you can see a couple elements present in the mobile view that you can't accomplish in apps today. You can see this sort of interesting title with a more contemporary back button. You can see this overflow menu for actions collapsed in a triple dot menu that would open a menu. You can see this denser fields component showing the information about this part in a database in a more dense way in two columns. One of our, I want to kind of explain the design philosophy behind this update as well. So one challenge we wanted to tackle when building Glide is, one, it's hard to design your app in the first place because most people aren't good designers. So we solved that by having this sort of included high-level design system that kind of designs your app for you just based on the data. But there's this subtle design problem, especially for business software, in that if you do nothing to your app, it will get uglier over time because design trends change and our eyes actually change. That's why software built for work just seems so clunky usually. It's because maybe when it was first created, it did look adequate, but over time, it just gets long in the tooth and it just ages really poorly. And we can actually see this even in the world's most popular software. So this is Instagram 10 years ago. And I wouldn't say it's terrible now, but it's not going to win any design awards. And users might prefer software that has a more contemporary look. So this was like the coolest, most beautiful app in the world. And you can see what 10 years does if you don't improve the software. So most great software gets performance and security updates. Glide gets those, but you also get design updates. And the move to Pages is a huge step forward for the design system of Glide. Here you can see a Glide app built in 2019. In 2021, you can see some refinements to title styles, navbar styles, improvements to the text input component, some refinements of that category switcher. These are automatic changes. So if you design this app for your company in 2019, 2 years later, it has these design improvements that just happen as part of the Glide design system. And on the right-hand side, you can see where we're going with the Glide design system, and this is all happening in Pages. So you can see it's even refined further, and there's a lot of new attention paid to the top part of the screen, the title, where you have this effect of sort of an overlapping image with a color splash from the top. This is all going to be automatic. Just to show you a little bit further, this is some of the just mobile design language coming to Glide Pages. You can see we're going to introduce this floating tab bar at the bottom that's kind of trendy and interesting looking. Glide Pages will get these sort of horizontal collections as well. In the center screenshot, you can see a little bit more of the finesse and care around the title component. You should see that over the next couple of months coming to Pages. Again, you kind of have this image effect that's an accent with an item detail image over it and some complex layout with the title, subtitle, and these actions in line. And then it's even more subtle. On the right-hand side, you have this edit overlay that doesn't take the whole screen, it sort of comes up from the bottom. As mobile screens are getting bigger, sometimes you don't want to do a full screen transition when you're editing or adding something. You want to do the sort of partial overlay. So that's another thing that's available in Pages today. So we're really excited about making Pages the main responsive across mobile and desktop platform for Glide going forward. And we're going to really bring the design language of Pages into the year 2023 and beyond. And it's going to be a really nice design update. Big glide tables. I couldn't think of a great way to visualize this. So on the left, you can just see that 10 million is a lot bigger than 25,000. Big glide tables will scale to the order of 10 million rows. They could be much larger than that. But we really wanted to make Glide more powerful by eliminating any concern of row capacity. So originally Glide is built on this sort of spreadsheet model and dealing with data sets the size of spreadsheets. But a lot of our customers, they just quickly grow out of that. They either already have a use case with a ton of data that they want to manage in a Glide app, or they've become successful in a way that has surprised them. And they say, wow, now that I have this new application for my company, I'm collecting all of this data that I wasn't collecting before. And I want to keep it. I don't want to forget it because it's useful to me, or it could be, and I'd like to find out what I can do with it. How can I just keep all this information? So early this year, our goal is the second quarter this to become more broadly available. When you create a Glide table, you'll choose, do you want this sort of in-memory small size? We'll get the language right. We don't want it to be too technical of a choice. We prefer no choice whatsoever, but there are some trade-offs between the Glide tables that we have today and the ones that scale really big. But you'll pick. You'll say, does your use case need a lot of data? You're going to do a big Glide table. Otherwise, the existing Glide table will suit you. Integrations. Connect your app to the world. This is another big power up for Glide. We're developing an extension system that for the next year will just be internal to Glide. It'll be used by Glide engineers to add features to Glide. And the goal is in 2024, we will open this up to third-party developers. But for now, it's going to be a much faster way for us to add key business integrations that our customers, our best customers, are using today, but they're using indirectly via integrating with a tool like Make or Zapier. We are not trying to compete with those tools, but we want the common things that people do in a Glide app, like generate a PDF, send an SMS, call out to an API and get some data that comes back into your table or onto your screen. Sending emails via your Google Workspace account. So the emails generated by your app are coming from you and not our built-in email feature. And then more exciting integrations that we don't really know how they'll be useful, but that's for you to discover. So we're going to have an OpenAI integration that lets you participate with these really exciting new AI APIs that you do prompt completion, image generation, etc. So you'll be able to discover these. You can see here in the updated action editor, which will become a central facet of the navigation in Glide. And you'll just be able to discover at the start 10, 20, 30 of these key integrations. We'll plan to keep adding them throughout the year. And if this initiative sort of sets us up in the right way, we'd love to expand this to let third-party developers add integrations directly to Glide. So you'll be able to create an action that says, when a user presses this button, if the inventory is low, I need to send a Slack message to our operations channel and say the current user couldn't make an order. Or after a customer has completed onboarding, I want to send them an SMS with a reminder about their upcoming appointment. And then we're totally excited about how this is going to become a whole new world for Glide. And you'll feel that Glide is really kind of the command center or the remote control to all of the other tools that you already use with your business will be able to be communicated with directly in Glide. I think the plan was to pause for a moment, and I'm sorry I haven't been watching the chat. I hope you guys haven't been waving to tell me to turn my mic on. But okay, people are happy, so I guess you're hearing the message. Just wanted to pause for a moment. Are there any integrations that you guys, maybe you don't see on the screen here, that you think are key? The goal here is, especially, you are many of our experts and our core community members. You guys know how to do all of this stuff in Glide via a webhook or Zapier. But what we really want to do is take the basic common cases that most apps need that you're probably already doing and just remove that one step from the equation so you can just do it directly in Glide without another tool. Send, okay, Mark, send mail via SMTP. Okay, no problem. Kathy wants to integrate with Calendly. That's an excellent one. That's a big one missing from this screenshot. Payments from Gideon. Okay. Native autocomplete on addresses. That's a really interesting thing that plugins or this extension system could offer. Send SMS is a big one. Yassine says maps with Google. You'll be happy to know I wrote already the initial version of a Google plugin that can do geocoding, reverse geocoding, distance calculations. So we're really excited to provide that. Yeah, lots of communication features, CSV export, awesome. I'm glad you guys are excited. We're going to be able to do all those things. It's going to be huge. And then these things all come together in an improved action editor with automations. So an automation, you can see here, this is just a very high level mockup. An automation is something that happens sort of independently of what users are doing in your app. And so the two clearest examples we can give are something based on a timer or a schedule. So at the end of every month or every Monday or every 15 minutes, I want to do something with the data in my tables. You might want to every day add 6 new rows to a table to create some sort of schedule. Another automation trigger our sort of incoming events. And we'll start with like an incoming webhook that you can sort of create here. And you can say, whenever I call this webhook and I'm gonna pass along some of this data, I want these things to happen inside of Glide. And we're just going to make it so you can do this directly. You can add incoming information triggered by automations directly to your tables, and we'll just simplify the entire process of creating your app and make it a lot less dependent on coordinating with an external tool. I hear these really horrible, in my opinion, stories of someone says, oh, I'm using a Google Sheet because whenever I add something to the Google Sheet, I have a trigger in the script editor in Google Sheets that will receive that information and go out to some API to gather some extra information, write it to the Google Sheet. Then I wait for Glide to sync with the Google Sheet to bring that information back in, and then my users can see it. That's not a great experience for you as the person creating the app to manage all these pieces everywhere. And it's also just slow from the user's perspective. You want to be able to have the user trigger an action, call out, get that information back into the app immediately, or and not rely on these external tools and the stitching things together with APIs to get information back into Glide. So we're really excited how this is sort of going to complete the loop of users using your app and triggering changes to information, and then data also sort of being triggered externally and coming back into the app. So yeah, summary of the changes to the product coming in the year, the transition from apps to pages. I saw some people hesitating in the chat. You're going to see pages grow really quickly, and you're going to be very excited about the advantages it gives you, and they'll be very clear early in the year. 10 million row big Glide tables. Name is still pending review by the marketing team. Integrations that connect your apps to the world directly from within Glide without using an integration service. And an improved action editor with automations, so you can trigger actions that update your data independently of what users are doing in the app, for example, on a schedule every night. To summarize on that theme of power, this mission that you can find in the footer of our website, put the power, beauty, and magic of software development in the hands of a billion new creators. You are those new creators, the members of our community. I really hope that you have this experience of power, beauty, and magic, and always give us feedback on how we can make Glide more powerful, more beautiful, more magical. So you can go on to build apps that move your world forward and delight their users. So thank you so much for joining today. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and I think we probably have some time for some questions.
I'm seeing so much good energy and excitement in the chat. This is amazing. All right, so we've gotten a bunch of questions in through the session. We'll start off with one of the recurring themes, which is timing. So some questions here around when are we going to expect to see plugins appear in the platform?
So the integrations that I mentioned, You'll start seeing them in the first 3 months of the year. We'll do some of the high priority business features like sending Slack messages, sending emails, exporting CSV, creating PDFs. These are features that our business customers have been asking for as long as we've had customers. And we've had to give them these unsatisfactory answers of, yes, you can do it. But you're going to go hook into this third-party thing and create a template over there and create a workflow in another tool. We want this to be just one click, add to my app. Here's the data I want for a CSV, run. There's a CSV file written into a column.
Nice. Another topic I see lighting up the chat right now, the migration from apps to pages.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a little bit, and we are planning more sessions in January, more community events to talk about this. But that migration from apps to pages, what's the vision on making that smooth for users?
Yeah, so today we have this a way for you to kind of preview your app as a page. If you right click on an app in Glide, you can say like create page from data, and it just brings the tables over. We're going to build something that will bring all of your screens over as well. And our first priority right now, our engineers are working on making sure we have component parity, more or less, between apps and pages. There's a bunch of components in pages. There's components in apps that aren't present in pages yet. We're going to get that sort of one-to-one, more or less. There's some things that won't come over. We don't think Stopwatch is going to make it, for example. And there's some design decisions in apps, sort of like favorites, for example, was sort of a built-in magical feature that you couldn't really access favorite data. It was kind of managed. Chat and comments are like that too, where you can't really access the data behind them. We want to make those features a lot more normal so that if you add comments to your page, you can just like edit the comments or create relations to them or just use them for computations in the same way that you do with the data that you manage. So long story short, we're working on migration. There will be something that lets you preview what your app project will look like as a page, and we'll ask the community to test this and give us feedback. And at some point, I don't think it's close, like maybe a year, maybe 18 months from now, once this mechanism is really solid, we will flip a switch at some point with lots of testing, lots of communication, and like your app should just become an equivalent page. But we're still a long way from that, but that is the goal.
And piggybacking off that one, how long are we planning to support apps for? So we know that this transition is coming. What happens to folks who still have projects on apps and they don't want to migrate?
We aren't quite sure. Our goal is, for the velocity of the company so that we can continue to develop great new features, we need to bring these together at some point. But like I said, I think it's at least a year out before there's any migration messaging or cutoffs for apps to become pages. We do think that earlier in the year, we're going to switch over to only allowing new projects to be pages.
All right, another question.
That being said, we need a lot of feedback about what people need to see most urgently to make to transition their use cases over.
Yeah. And on that point, we are, for the experts, ambassadors, power users of Glide, look out for an invite from us within the next couple weeks for a session in January, all about that move from apps to pages. We want to have a lot of deep conversations with you about what do you need to make that transition better? What are you looking for in pages that's missing right now that you might be using in apps? So look out for those opportunities to jump into conversations with the Glide team and just other ways we're going to be gathering your feedback for that. There's one question here from Gideon around offline features. So as we think about the power of Glide heading into next year, what's on the roadmap for the offline power of Glide?
Honestly, the only thing on the roadmap is to try to preserve the offline capabilities of apps. Apps can do some like offline row adding, but especially with these new features like automations and integrations, the offline story gets even harder. So we need to collect from you, Gideon, like the specific offline scenarios that you hope Glide to improve or support.
And going back to the timing theme, automations, a lot of love for, I'm super excited by it as well. The automations, the actions, when can we start expecting that in the platform?
So you'll see the actions, third-party actions appear throughout the first half of the year, but we won't have automations for sort of like a private preview until the second half of the year.
And following up on that one, this question from Jonathan: reusable actions and presets. What's the thinking on that?
So yeah, the improved action editor, as you can see, it's going to be at the top level, sort of a main facet of the navigation, and you will be able to create normal actions there that you reuse in different parts of your app. So that is a necessary piece of centralizing the action editor in one location. Is you'll be able to create actions with names, and then when you create a button on any given screen, as long as if you define an action that works on the employees table, as long as you have an employee either on the current screen or so you can reference an employee, you can use one of those reusable named actions.
A little bit of a different, a little bit of a pivot here on the questions. Looking at some of those stories that you shared at the beginning for businesses that are using Glide today.
Yeah.
Looking ahead to the apps for work use cases, different businesses that are using Glide, is there a particular type of business or type of use case that we're particularly focused on? Who are we building Glide for?
Well, the one that we probably hear the most these days is customer portal. These are businesses that have customer information. These apps are private according to the desires of the customer, not our desires. But I helped a customer recently. It was really cool. It's a 110-year-old stationery company. And the fourth generation owner they're trying to modernize, and they have hundreds of clients that need to reorder their custom stationery, and they were to build on Glide a self-serve customer portal where each client can sign in and just see their historical orders and reorder and customize them. So that's a use case we see a ton of. So if you're an expert, you're looking to get more business, I think thinking along the lines of offering great customer portals where businesses can have their customers sign in and securely manage their data and interact with the company is really powerful. And I think Pages is especially great for that because you can create one project that lets customers who prefer to use a PC have a large scale portal that's easier to navigate with a keyboard and a mouse. And then the business owner, the employees, and maybe more savvy customers can pin the same experience to their home screen on mobile. And you don't have to manage two different projects.
Love it. Another question here on this is a bit more philosophical, but where do you see Glide fitting in the growing no-code ecosystem? And a second part of that question, where do you see the no-code ecosystem going overall as we head into 2023? It's the time of year for predictions.
Yeah, overall it's going up. I'm really excited about no-code. I think that the world needs more software, and there just aren't enough people who know how to code to create it with traditional tools. And those tools have some fundamental flaws. We're not just creating Glide so that people who can't create software via coding can make it. We also think that there's ways to just improve software, to make it safer, to make it faster, to make it better designed with higher level tools for the common use cases. So these tools are just gaining momentum and becoming more popular, and it's really exciting to see. I love talking to people who just don't have that engineering background. And no matter what tool they use, I don't care if it's Glide or not, I prefer Glide. But when they say I made this, and they show on a screen software that's helping with their business or helping them communicate or organizing their community, it's just, the more the merrier, of people creating artifacts like this. It's fantastic. It's maybe we're a publisher of books. I just love seeing people reading. It's great that more people are reading. Yes, read some of our books, but it's great that this behavior is spreading. And Glide's position in no-code, I want us to be the easiest and most powerful tool for businesses to create custom software. And we're really focused. One of the ways we stand out the most is our approach to design. We want the design to be included when you create software in Glide. So you don't have to think about it, but you get something beautiful that's sort of slightly branded to your company that your employees and customers just find easy to use and delightful, without thinking about modals and DOM hierarchies and CSS and color values. That's our spot in the no-code landscape.
That's fantastic. Definitely something that appealed to me when I started playing with Glide all that time ago. Just that philosophy and it being so well captured in the execution. Really excited to see where we take things next year. All right, folks. So we're coming up on time. There were a ton of questions, comments, feedback in the chat. Thank you all for joining us and bringing your ideas and energy to the session. Even if we weren't able to get to your questions, we've captured everything. We're going to be taking it back, looking at what we can answer through upcoming events, emails, posts in the community. So if there's anything else you'd like to see from us, please just let us know. Drop a comment in the community. If you're in the experts group, let us know in Slack. Ditto for ambassadors. We're all ears. We're excited to see where we can take things next year with you. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you. Happy holidays. Have a great new year.
Happy holidays.